Welcome to The Buzz. We've got an exciting episode this month featuring Florida Southern College's exercise science major, along with one of its shining stars. Stay tuned, you don't want to miss this. Hello and welcome back to The Buzz. I'm your host, Dion Spires. Today we're talking about exercise science, a major that encompasses the study of how our bodies move. We have a special guest here in the studio today. That's Dr. Sara Terrell, who is the program coordinator of exercise science at Florida Southern College. She's here to talk to us about their program and what makes exercise science a fascinating field of study. How are you doing today, Dr. Terrell?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I've never heard of exercise science as a major, which is really strange because I went to Florida Southern, and it's a unique major, I think, in the sense that not a lot of people have probably heard about it. Tell me about your involvement with the major and kind of what you're doing with it at Florida Southern College.
Well, exercise science is, if you had to give it a history, it's probably a derivative of physical education. Okay, so our roots are established in physical education, but over time, over the past couple of decades, it's evolved into other specific types of majors. You might have heard of athletic training, exercise science. Those are all what we'd consider to be derivatives of physical education. So at Florida Southern, the major was formerly called Human Movement and Performance. And I arrived in 2014, 2015, and the charge was to try to kind of take that program, which was sort of like a PE program, sort of like an exercise science program, and turn it into what we would consider to be more of an established exercise science program using curricular standards from accrediting agencies within exercise science. So since that time period, that's what I've been charged with doing and trying to get the major up and running at Florida Southern. So far, so good. We've had a lot of excitement and a lot of enthusiasm, and we seem to be moving in the right direction. That's
awesome. I love that you're kind of building it from the ground up yourself. And I was reading a little bit about you on the internet before we met today, and you've got a history in exercise science, 15 years, is that right?
That just means I'm old, but yeah, so I've been around for a long time, and I started out in physical education and health, and I started out in secondary education, and was a student athlete, loved sports, loved learning about the body, and I decided that I actually liked more of the physiology side. I was interested in training, how does the body respond to training, specifically using myself as a case study, which I think a lot of people do that are within our major, is trying to take that cognitive component and apply it to training. But eventually, yes, I made it into higher education. I've been within higher education for a lot of years, as you referenced, formerly in an exercise physiology program at a different institution, and now here at Florida Southern in our exercise science program.
Great. Now let's talk about what kind of encompasses that exercise, or what that exercise science major encompasses. I was looking on the website for Florida Southern, and it seems that you guys have a lot of hands-on experience. Can you talk about the curriculum that is involved with the exercise science major?
Absolutely. So exercise science is, I would describe it as like your backyard trampoline. So it could springboard you to a variety of different health-related careers. But there's kind of a core component of expectations, some knowledge, skills, and abilities that we would expect our students to have. And in that, absolutely, it's a tremendous major that lends itself well to hands-on opportunities. So that can be within our exercise science lab, working on what we call metabolic testing. It could be looking at different types of, let's say, lactate response to exercise, taking blood pressures during exercise. There's a variety of different ways that we become hands-on because our major involves movement and the assessment of physiology in response to that particular movement. And so our students have to have those skills that are hands-on related types of skills. So if you want to be involved, you're kinesthetic as a learner, it's a great major to be involved in.
And you mentioned that it springboards you into a number of different careers. For people who maybe aren't familiar with sports medicine or sports physical therapy, that sort of thing, I also read that you like to say, look around, there's jobs everywhere that involve sports medicine. What types of jobs are out there for those that are in this major?
Well, again, using that backyard trampoline, there's a variety of different ways you can go. So for, in my experience, and certainly I've seen this unfold at Florida Southern, we have some students who go what I consider to be direct entry jobs. So that would be things like in the fitness industry, personal training, group exercise instruction, owning their own maybe personal training business and studio. That could be public health, that could be worksite wellness and employee wellness, kind of corporate fitness, which is also kind of an area that's growing exponentially as we look at healthcare costs. Cardiac rehabilitation, which would be in more of a hospital-based setting. So folks that have a bachelor's of science degree in exercise science can walk out into direct entry jobs. We also have a strong contingency of students who are interested in graduate-bound types of programs. And so that's where we're a good launching pad into graduate programs like physical therapy, occupational therapy, biomechanics, maybe even more in depth in, let's say, clinical exercise physiology as it relates to, again, kind of cardiac rehab and exercise testing. So there's a variety of different ways that our students can take the degree. So what I like about it is because it has that utility, but also if you have a student, for instance, they're sure that they want physical therapy and that's what they want to do, and then ultimately maybe they discover, I'm not sure if that's what I want to do, they can walk out of our college with a degree and get a job right away and not necessarily say, I have to go to grad school. So I don't like to be linked with, it's only a grad school type of opportunity. There's a variety of different things that our students can be exposed to. And sports medicine actually is another one. So athletic training is moving to a master's level type of career. So our major is also another major that I think could prepare students to pursue a master's degree in athletic training if that's something that they wanted to do as well.
So would you say that that's kind of an advantage to doing exercise science, is that it doesn't necessarily lock you into that subject matter, but it gives you the opportunity to go there versus majoring in nursing or sports medicine or something like that?
Yeah, I think with exercise science, you get a very strong core group of classes that can provide tremendous utility in whatever direction that you go. And so that's what I do think is a strength, is the foundational knowledge that you have is very applicable to a variety of different disciplines eventually down the road.
Now, I know that you've done some research in the field. I think it probably is, it just comes with that field of work. What kind of research is being done in the in the exercise science area of work right now?
Oh, you name it. There's a variety of different things I could say to answer that. I guess, where do I even start? So what I'll just say is at Florida Southern, we have a few things that we have going on right now, which is kind of fun. My background is pretty diverse, so I've been on the sports performance side of things. I've been in employee wellness and worksite wellness, disease state management, and the other area for me is teaching and pedagogy. So those three kind of areas are always where my research tends to fall. And I would say with my colleagues, currently we're looking at robotic research, the role of robotic technology as it relates to sports performance. So that's our current kind of project. And as the program gets up and running, we're going to have some more research projects that are going. We actually had 2 faculty hired this year besides me. So I've gone from me to now having a team of 3, and both of them have some research interests that I know they'll be able to get off the ground as well. But within the field, it's hard for me to say, because there's just so much. So you tell me what you want to learn about, we can probably research it between sports performance, maybe it's geriatrics, maybe it's working across the lifespan, maybe it's increasing physical activity, maybe it's the role of nutrition in athletic performance. I just listed a few of the multitude of different things that people can research in our field.
That's a great thing, though, to have that broad of a spectrum of things that you can pursue, because that all goes back to how many jobs are out there and how many different areas you can pursue. So that's really cool. On that same note, we've got one of your students on the way who has been pretty successful in the field. So can we talk about your students for a moment? Can you talk about, maybe not her, but any students who have really made an impact on people by using this exercise science major, whether that be in an internship, a job afterwards, or even just research or something like that?
Well, I always say, students are the lifeblood of any program. So a program's success is completely dependent upon having students who want to be engaged within their discipline and engaged within their learning. And so at Florida Southern, we have been blessed to have some really, some students who've wanted to dive in and wanted to do more and kind of reach higher levels. And so I think that characteristic in and of itself is going to lend students towards success. But in my short tenure there, we've had some students be very successful in a variety of different internship areas, whether that was Florida Presbyterian Homes, or we're going to talk with staff with the Lakeland firefighters, or in physical therapy. But for what we try to do is we try to get our students involved in as many experiential experiences as they possibly can. And internships are critical to that professional development. So, for us, I think students' experience is what they make of it, but we have worked really, really hard to connect them to a variety of different places within the Lakeland community, the state of Florida, or even, further out than that, to provide them with that resource. So I'm not quite sure if I answered your question or not, but as I'm dawning back on, did I really answer that question or not? But I think Steph's a great example of what happens when you decide to to get involved in your major and take advantage of those opportunities. And I think that will springboard them well to grad school, to jobs, and I have seen that happen both in my, at my previous institution and here at Florida Southern.
That's great. And I'm excited to hear from Steph because she's doing some really cool stuff with what started as an internship and I believe has turned into a research project or something of that nature. So I'm excited to talk to her for sure. Before we run out of time with your interview here, can you give kind of a run through of just like one last sell as to like why, if someone's never heard of exercise science before and right now is the first time that they've heard of it, why should they go for it if they have an inkling of maybe that's something I'd want to do?
So you're asking me for the one minute elevator speech or less, which is what I always grill my students to do, and here's the pressure. Yeah, I would say if you enjoy impacting the lives of other people in a positive capacity, then this is the career that you need to be in. And when students come in, they don't have it all figured out yet, and that's okay. And I think once they get into our major and they realize the multiplicity of options that are available to them, but intrinsically they want to be in a major that is hands-on, that their faculty are going to be working with them, that their faculty are going to challenge them, that they have a variety of different ways that they could use the skills and abilities that they're going to develop, then Florida Southern Exercise Science is the place that they need to be.
That was a great 1 minute elevator speech. Very good job. Sounds like a rewarding, or a major that you can turn into a rewarding experience. So
Absolutely.
I think it's really cool that you guys are really building that up, and I wish you the best of luck continuing
Well, thank you. Well, I appreciate that our paths have crossed. As a Florida Southern alum, it's always great to meet an alum, and thank you for having us.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I'll be talking to Stephanie Carillo-Chavez, one of the students from Florida Southern's exercise science major, who's using her studies to make a difference in the health and well-being of firefighters. We'll be right back.
Employment that qualifies for forgiveness must be a job that requires at least 30 or more hours a week in a public service organization. Jobs that qualify provide specific public services, such as public education or public health, with employers such as federal, state, local, or tribal government organizations and nonprofit organizations. Some common professions that most likely qualify are nurses, teachers, law enforcement officers, and public interest lawyers, among others. Employment qualification determinations are not available until you submit the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Employment Certification Form.
Welcome back to The Buzz. We have our second special guest now in studio, Stephanie Carillo-Chavez, who is using exercise science to make an impact in the lives of Lakeland's firefighters. How are you doing, Stephanie?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you so much for coming out here from Lakeland. It's a little drive out here to Bartow.
It's a whole new world.
We appreciate you being here to talk about what you're doing because you're doing some really cool stuff to make use of your major, and you're not even out of college yet, so that's pretty amazing that you're getting started on it already. I want to start off just by getting to know you a little bit. So this is a very broad question, but tell me about you. Just a little bit about Stephanie.
Well, I am a very typical gym rat, and even before I started in this major, I loved sports and going out and supporting my team or doing the best I can to play them on and off. And besides exercise, I really like music. I'm actually working with one of my bosses to kind of combine the two loves and see, not exactly become a Zumba instructor, but you know, add music to my workouts and get people to fall in love with one thing and get them moving in any way I can. So
Wow.
I love music. I play guitar on the offhand when I'm not lifting weights.
Nice.
And I just really enjoy dogs.
Don't we all, right? So yeah, I imagine that music is one of those things that like can help to motivate people to exercise, so that probably really benefits you in the field that you're going into to try to coordinate those things.
Yeah.
So tell me about, obviously you said you like lifting weights, you like supporting the sports teams, that sort of thing, but when and why did you decide exercise science was the major for you over something else?
Well, getting into college, I actually started out as a bio major with like all hopes and dreams of becoming a doctor. And even that sort of dream was generalized, but it was to please my parents, not gonna lie. I guess we all start out that way.
It happens.
But yeah, just talking with other students at Florida Southern, we were just laying out by the pool one day, and this one dude was telling me about human movement performance and how he loved going to his classes because they were basically coming in, learning about sports, or coming in and dancing. There was one class we had that was called Games and Rhythmic Activity. So, I mean, does that not sound fun?
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
And at that point in my freshman year, I wasn't doing bad in science classes, but I wasn't enjoying it either. I mean, who wants to study plants for 3 hours?
Right.
Maybe somebody else, but not me. So he talked to me about that sort of major, and that's what I wanted to spend my time doing, was going outside and playing and learning about why that's good. And so I made the switch to exercise science rather than choosing it in the forefront.
Wow. That's really cool when someone kind of like discovers their passion halfway through, or however far in you may be, because it's really important to find a passion and pursue it, because it's not work anymore in that sense. Tell me a little bit about the major. I talked to Dr. Terrell in the first half about what the curriculum's like and stuff, but what was your favorite part once you did get involved with it? What stood out to you?
So comparing back to the classes I had in my bio major, what I loved most about those classes were taking the labs and getting to make something new. And so once I switched over, I was in a class called Care and Prevention of Athletic Injuries, which is something an athletic trainer might take. But for us, it got us a chance to review what injuries were like and maybe what we can do in the moment to relieve pain or stabilize a joint if you broke something.
Wow.
And I thought that was so exciting it was almost as if we were first responders, but in the sports world. And so
Nice.
as a first experience, I thought that was completely exciting. I also took a class called Sports Psychology, and I think everybody wants to be a psychologist when they're in high school. I think it's the coolest thing to study people, and I didn't think that was applied to the sports world. So it really just opened new doors for me in thinking that athletes, they are different in a way that they handle their lives and their minds and how they get in during game time and things like that. So I think those are certain classes that I enjoyed. I don't remember the question.
That was basically it.
Awesome.
What stood out to you? So you're a senior now. You're about to graduate. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very
Made
exciting.
it this far.
So you've kind of touched on it in the last question, but is there any particular way that you feel like you've grown since you were a freshman to now because of the major?
Well, I'm here, so there's that one thing. I think I was so engrossed in studies my freshman year and just getting through school and not really making anything of myself. I was just another student in a sea of potential doctors. But switching to this major, I think, got me more active in the community of Florida Southern in itself. So I not recently, but in the start of my junior year is when I started working for the Wellness Center. And so I started out as a fitness attendant. I basically just cleaned the equipment. But I worked my way up to becoming a personal trainer. I think the staff there, the professional staff, are awesome and encouraging to reach more and become better. So shout out to my boss. It was a wonderful opportunity to become a personal trainer because I got to know a lot more students and what they're going through. And in that job, I became a therapist, and so I made more connections with people. I made more connections with faculty that would come in and work out, and all that talking I would have never done my freshman year.
Right.
And I just became a people person. I still don't see myself that way, but if you ask anyone who knows me, that's a lot of people you would have to ask. Just a lot of people know me. But I think getting out of your shell is what you hope to achieve in college, and
Absolutely.
that's definitely what I did.
Cool. Now you've got a really cool internship that I think internships are one of the most important things about college because it gets you your real world experiences and forces you to network a little bit, like you were talking about, getting to know people and meeting the right people, making connections. Tell me about your internship. Explain to the viewers what it is you're doing.
Well, this internship was a result of a lot of things coming together. And so last year in the spring semester, I got an opportunity to take a kettlebell workshop and become a certified instructor in using that sort of equipment. And if you don't know what a kettlebell is, but you know what a dumbbell is, instead of imagining the weight on your sides and your hand in the middle, your hand is on top and the weight's below you.
Right.
It's like a ball. And at the same time in that spring semester, one of our seniors was volunteering at the same fire station. She's just doing sort of the same thing I was and working them out and giving them workouts and making sure they're still active during their shifts. So come fall, our head of the department, Dr. Terrell, she wanted to keep that sort of relationship going with the Lakeland Fire Station. And so she approached me about not only taking over that position, but making it my own. And so she told me if I wanted to, I could create a special project. And with this whole new certification I got, I was in love with kettlebells and still am. And so she told me, well, do something with that. See if you can create some sort of program using that equipment and looking over what firefighters need and putting all that together to train them. And so it was just an ongoing project. The idea sprung in the previous semester, and I kind of hammered down in the start of the fall to make it something worthwhile.
So what kind of training are you doing with those firefighters? What are you kind of focusing in on with them? So
a lot of what firefighters do, it's not activity you would normally think of, maybe like rescuing a cat from a tree or constantly fighting fires. In reality, they spend a lot of their day in offices, maybe doing paperwork or maybe just waiting for the next call. And so it's a lot of what we call sedentary behavior, sitting. And so that's not good for someone to come from laying on a couch or sitting in a desk straight into strenuous activity like going through a burning building or lifting up heavy sewer holes. And so my job was to keep their activity going. And so they have 2 hours set apart for exercise. And at times, if they can't think of something to do, a lot of it's not organized, and a lot of it isn't based on what they already do out in the field. So my job was to make sure that they practice movements that they do, considering lower body strength, lower back kind of integrity. And so I wanted to reduce back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain. That's a lot of what they experience, maybe because they don't do movements correctly. So my job really was to make them become more aware of their body and what they need and how they can meet those needs.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I read, is there a certain amount of time in the program that you created that your program kind of spans over that they do, or is it?
So what I created was a 10-week program.
10 weeks.
And so just from class and everything we've learned, it takes about 8 to 12 weeks to see a change.
Okay.
And so specifically what I was testing is mobility in the hips. And so if you've ever tried to bend over and catch a pencil without warming up, it's kind of difficult, or maybe you're sore coming back up. And so we want to increase that mobility so it's not difficult to bend over or pick up heavy objects, and it's not hard to call on that strength when you need it. And they often need that. So.
And what kind of research did you have to do to develop this 10-week program? Because I imagine it's not just, you didn't just wake up one day and say, oh, this would be good to train this area, and this would be good to train that one. How much research went into that?
A lot of research went into it. So our professors very often encourage us to read articles on anything that we like to do. But to come across these articles, you have to sit down and spend time, not looking through the internet, but looking through specific search engines. And so I'll type in a few words like firefighters, and then 1,000 things will come up, and then I'll have to reduce it to lower back pain or mobility. And I've gone through, and I have several saved, and I think a good number between like 10 and 15 articles need to be read just to get a basis of any subject you're looking on. And even after that, they reference other articles, so you have to go read those and then go refer back to the textbooks and make sure that what they're talking about is correct. And so a lot of time was spent just making sure I knew what I was doing in reference to this.
Now, as a college student going in to work with all of these firefighters, was there any intimidation there, or were you raring to go, chomping at the bit? How was that?
Well, there's the height difference. Here comes this young girl, 5 feet at best, walking in and telling older individuals who have experienced lives beyond what I've experienced. And I'm sitting down and telling them what to do, essentially. And so it was a hard barrier to pass, and I think they're warming up to me still. But it was challenging to come in and sort of not demand respect, but command it. And so I wouldn't just come in and tell them what to do. I would show them the exercises and do it with them and show them that I'm not doing this because I just want to give you something to do. I believe that this is going to work. And so it was a matter of coming in and proving to them it's worthwhile and you should give this a shot. And it was a lot of hard heads to knock, but I love them and they're great people.
Yeah. So then after they finished their 10-week program with you, there may have been resistance at first. By the end of it, what did they say about it? How did they feel about the results from it?
So it's really hard to keep track of all of them. And so they have these 2 hours set apart where I'm allowed to work with them, but that doesn't mean that they are free. It's not a break.
Right.
So at most, I could have 4 or 5 that I see every third day. And there are 2 that I keep in constant sort of contact with, and I think one of the most prominent kind of report I get from them, I've set up a warm-up that they do before every workout, and it's the same thing. So Murph, if I'm allowed to say his name, has already gone and memorized this warm-up, and he's gone and done it, and it's helped him sort of stretch his muscles out, and it's helped him feel better as far as their lower back is concerned. And so it shows that if you keep consistent with my program, there's strength to be made, there's strength to be had, and it's kind of hard to pinpoint right now if my program is truly effective. I think this is sort of an ongoing thing, but I mean, there's been positive reports, and a lot of them reported having fun, kind of. It's something new to them, too. They don't often swing around a kettlebell all around the station. So it's good. It's been good.
Cool. Well, I love that you're using your experience to really further your experience in the classroom to further your education outside of the classroom, because applied learning is really one of the best ways, I imagine, in your field to really understand what you're doing. Now, I talked to Dr. Terrell beforehand about how there's so many options whenever you get out of a exercise science major. Any plans after college for what you want to do?
So I am going to go towards the grad school bound options.
Okay.
I'm applying to several now, kind of just selling myself, which is I find very hard to do. But in the bigger picture, I kind of hope to be a strength and conditioning coach, which is kind of what people they mostly think what exercise science that'll lead to. But before I kind of settle into strength and conditioning, I want to get a lot into research and maybe design new shoes for a sports team, or design new sort of knee wraps, or like waist belts to help performance. There's just so much I want to do. So grad school is the first option, though. Whether it's research bound or maybe working with a famous sports team for colleges, I think that would be really exciting.
That's great, and I wish you the best of luck with that, because I can see the passion and the excitement about the major within you. So I think
Thank you.
You've got a bright future, I can tell. So best of luck with all of that.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here to talk about the major and your internship.
Yeah, I loved it.
That's all the time that we have for today, but if you missed any part of this episode, you can catch it again on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 1 and 7 p.m. or find us on the Polk Government YouTube page. Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Buzz. I'll see you next time.